right. Welcome. It is Friday. Oh my gosh, it's the last Friday in February. It feels like we just started 2024 and we're almost to the end of the month already. What is happening? I'm so glad that you are spending time with us for our community of practice, our monthly community of practice workshop. I am Naomi Williams. I am coming to you from Muskogee land, which is now currently known as Augusta, Georgia. Welcome to PFCC Partners. We are based in Los Angeles, not Los Angeles, we're based in Long Beach, in California. We are recording today, and this workshop will be up on our YouTube channel, as well as there will be a live transcript will be available. So for those of you who are new to the Community of Practice workshops, we welcome you. This is what PFCC Partners is all about. We want to see a health system transformed into one that works with people and through communities as partners in their well-being. We catalyze system improvements by centering that human experience of health. And we recognize the critical role that community engagement must play for every effort at delivering health equity. So we know that healthcare is a big system, a big and very complex system. And that complexity can make it very challenging for people to access the care that aligns with their needs, their health, and their health priorities, as well as their preferences. So we at PFCC Partners believe that when a system centers the care and the care process on the person's potential, when the care is centered on the person, then there's potential to reduce the complexity of navigating that system, as well as advancing a culturally humble and equitable healthcare system. Okay, are we good now? We recognize the need to open the space for patients, family caregivers, and the community voices that drive those improvements in this complex system. We know that the voices of patients, family members, and community is the catalyst which drives the system of change. Our team is full of dedicated and passionate team members that have experience partnering with the healthcare system. One of the ways that we do this is through the PFA network. It's a system that was created by patients and family members for patient and family members, where they lend their expertise of lived experience. The way that the PFA network works is through engagement opportunities, being able to do working with various health systems, different projects, as well as working with community members, developing community engagement, as well as skills exchange. So making sure that we stay up to date and educate, that we have the skills that are needed to be effective partners. You all can find more about the PFA network. You are welcome to join the PFA network as well. I think one of your colleagues might be dropping that link into the chat. So that's a high-level overview of PFCC Partners and the PFA network. I am so excited to get ready to turn our workshop over to Mr. Tom Dahlberg. Tom is a former healthcare CFO, who also has a background in research, innovation, analytics, quality improvement, and more. And at one time was also a patient who was told he would never work again and to get in line for a heart transplant. Tom truly believes love is the force multiplier for all we do and all we are in healthcare and beyond. Tom?
Thank you, Noel.
There you go.
And let's see, I just need to be able to share my screen.
Tom, you should be able to now.
Per- Perfect.
Awesome.
Can folks see?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Naomi, and thank you all for being here. Sharing time with you is truly a blessing. As I put in the chat, I am joyful to share time with you. So let's get started. And I may be alive, but I'm not living. I may be alive, but I'm not living. A number of years ago, I was brought into a VA medical center to deliver a series of heart and mind communication workshops. And I remember this particular day. I had set up in what was a very long, from front to back, and very narrow meeting room. And I was now at the entrance to the room, greeting participants and handing out documents they would need, including evaluations of the program. During this process, I met two combat engineers who are now working for this organization. And let's just say it was clear very early on, they were voluntold for that presentation. So I completed greeting folks, and as the few stragglers were taking their seats, I began to walk to the front of the room to begin the program. And as I did, I noticed that before I had even started, my two combat engineer friends had already completed my evaluation, and each had given me a 0 of 10. So I proceed to begin the program, and almost immediately, one of these combat engineers leaves, but the other one did stay. And as the program goes along and we got to the part of the workshop where folks were pairing up, I noticed the remaining combat engineer is still all alone. He's not paired up with anyone. So I walked over, I got down on one knee, so now we're eye to eye, and I put my hand out and I introduced myself again, and we shook hands. I asked him his name and he told me. And then, now remember, this was a workshop on heart and mind communication. He proceeds to tell me some of his story. He says, "Do you see this?" And as he would ask me this question, he actually pulled down his collared shirt a bit and showed me a scar. And he said, "This is where I was stabbed in battle." He then rolled up one of his shirt sleeves and he says, "This is where I was shot." And what did I do? I listened and I learned. Oh, yeah, I learned. "You are here teaching heart and mind communication," he said. And then before I could even respond, he said, "I was taught to kill my own heart in order to survive." As I mentioned, I learned. We often talk about empathy and its importance and its impact, but I learned. I learned we must be mindful, we must be heartful, and we must be very careful. Each of us has a unique lens through which we view everything around us, in which we see the world. Our perception is influenced by our background, our knowledge, our values, our experiences, our beliefs, and so much more. We can never experience things in the exact same way as the person next to us. We can never truly walk in another's shoes. And oftentimes, we fool ourselves if we think we can. So, this is what I learned this day. No matter how much I care, how much I love, how much I try to empathize, there will always be a gap in understanding that I will never truly be able to close. And although oftentimes it's uncomfortable, it's also invaluable to acknowledge the gap, to acknowledge we don't know. And it's okay. Now, after a bit more talk, I got up and I finished the workshop, all the while thinking of my combat engineer friend and what he had been through, and how I truly had no idea. At the end of the session, my new friend walked up to me. He put his hand out and we shook hands and he said, "Tom, I may be alive, but I am not living." And he wept a bit. And then he said, "I'm going to go get help." Yes, I learned about empathy and both its importance and its challenge. Yes, I learned about the power of listening that when we truly listen, we are truly caring, we are truly loving. Now, many talk about how we must move from listening to respond, our natural state, to listening to understand. But I learned in that space too. What I found is, although better, this listening to understand is often us listening to understand to achieve our goal, not our patients, not our team members, not our communities. Better, listen because we truly care, because we do truly love. Easy? No, but oh, so worth it. So before we go on, I would like to ask each of you here to look inward, to look into your own mirror, to look into your own hearts. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to share out loud. But please go within and ask yourself, with all that's happening in this world, with all that's happening in healthcare, with all that is happening in your own life, similar to my combat engineer friend, have you maybe not killed your own heart to survive, but have you hardened your heart? And if so, how is this hardening of your heart serving you? Are you surviving? Are you thriving? Now, this isn't the first time I learned about heart, about love, from someone I encountered in healthcare. Back in 2001, as Naomi mentioned, after a cardiac event, I remember myself laying in a hospital bed at Mercy Hospital in Portland, Maine, in the darkness, in the middle of the night. Now, remember, I was scared. I was scared of leaving my bride. I was scared of leaving our young children. I was soon to be told I would need to get in line for a heart transplant. I was not even sure if I was ever going to leave that hospital. And I remember my nurse, Nurse Linda. She came into my room. She sat on the edge of my bed. She held my hand. She looked deeply into my eyes. And I remember her words of comfort, her words of compassion, her words of caring, her 4 words of love. She said, "Tom, I've got you." And these were the words I needed, the words I needed in that instant to assure me that I would survive that moment, that night, that I would survive long enough to see my family again. Linda's 4 words of love. Since that time, I sought to understand, to research what positions someone like Linda to keep her heart soft, to be her true, authentic, compassionate, caring, loving self. What positions any of us, all of us, to share the love we have in our own hearts with another. For I truly believe this is why we're here, to lead and to serve and to love in healthcare and in life. I also learned from people like Peter Pronovost. He's the Chief Clinical Transformation Officer at University Hospitals in Cleveland. And he said, people say that love has no business in healthcare. I say the very business of healthcare is love. Now, many in and out of healthcare know of Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and those same folks leverage his wisdom daily. But not many know that Covey talks about love. Love, trust, and managing people with a dedication to helping them reach their full potential are key responsibilities of leaders. A key responsibility to position people to successfully honor their calling, help them keep their hearts soft, and to love others like my nurse Linda does each and every day. And yet, how often do we discuss love in this construct? How often do we discuss love in healthcare? How often do we as healthcare leaders, as healthcare team members, as community members think about love as we think about our mission, our goals, our key performance indicators, our impact. So I continued to research. And as I did, I realized I need to look at my own family to learn more. In this case, to my son. You see, my son Tommy was born with neurological challenges. He was also a big kid. And as a big kid, he was bullied relentlessly, predominantly by adults, by parents, and by coaches. My bride and I, we thought we were the worst parents ever. And we thought we were all alone in this. We kept asking, what have we done? What have we done wrong? What do we do for our baby? Around this time, I was working for the National Institute for Children's Health Quality, and I was lucky. I had access to experts. And if you think about high reliability organizations or HROs, a key tenet is to defer to the experts, which we did. And we learned what was happening to my son, to Tommy, was not an aberration. And we learned what we should and should not do. Through basketball, we helped Tommy learn to love himself, to love his body, and to cherish exactly who he is. And I believe Naomi may be putting in the chat a video that we talk about this. Now, don't get me wrong, this has been a long journey. A journey which included Tommy putting a belt around his neck in a suicide attempt when he was in 4th grade. A story we share about in our book, Big Kid in Basketball. And a journey that continues today with the additional help of incredible health and healthcare team members, psychiatrists, counselors, patient advocates, community organizations, friends who too believe in the wisdom of Stephen Covey. Tommy has shared his journey to mental wellness and all he has learned through a Strengthen Through Vulnerability podcast he created to help others. By leading the TB Kid Youth Basketball Camp, which focuses on building up self and building up others, including so that all truly know they belong, reflecting on all the good and the opportunities before us. And today, as an analyst with TD Bank, Tommy is furthering his message and loving impact within the banking industry. In fact, TD Bank leadership learned of Tommy's journey, his journey toward mental wellness, his learning to love himself, his courageous vulnerability, and sharing his story and his love for others. And they have loved Tommy and positioned him to achieve his full potential, again, going back to Covey, by charging him to lead for the entire organization what they refer to as, what do you know? Where Tommy engages people throughout TD Bank, throughout Canada, and throughout the US to share their fears, their challenges, their hopes, their faith, their mental wellness journey, their love, all in a safe place for the betterment of others, for the betterment of themselves, their teams, their organizations, their communities. And the impact has been profound. From an incredible woman facing postpartum depression to many other stories, all have learned to honor, better understand, empathize, enhance teamness and respect, and love in a whole new way. And in so doing, create a culture of caring, of loving, that has led to a decrease in turnover, greater engagement, and increased performance throughout each of the business units, throughout the entire bank, and thus translated into healthcare, and thus can be translated to healthcare systems in our organizations brilliantly. Now, Seth Godin, many may know him. He's an entrepreneur, a best-selling author, a guru for many, and he calls himself a ruckus maker. He too understands. According to him, caring at scale can't be done by the CEO or a VP. But what these folks can do is create a culture that cares. They can hire people who are predisposed to care. They can pay attention to the people who care and measure things that matter instead of chasing the short term. That is what Mercy Hospital had done in Portland, Maine. That is what TD Bank leadership is currently doing. That's what University Hospitals in Cleveland is doing. That is what we each can do. And in so doing, we can position all to further reach their own potential and lovingly help so many others. But my research did not stop there. And again, I learned from family. Carl was a funeral home director for many years. For some, they might find this being a funeral home director an eerie profession, but not for me, because this funeral home director was my grandpa. When I was young, my father would take me to Bob the barber for my haircut. This was back when you didn't call ahead for an appointment, but would rather simply show up, sit in a smoke-filled room, read comic books, listen to the adults talk about the Red Sox, and wait your turn. Bob the barber grew up with my parents, knew everybody, and most importantly to me, he knew my grandpa and would share many stories. He would say, Tommy, back in the day, many people in town were very poor. When there was a death in the family, who was the person who would take care of everything for them and not charge a dime? It was your grandfather. A death on Christmas Eve, your grandfather would be there for them. 3 a.m., no problem. Carl would comfort the family, hold the family, and make sure all was taken care of. Your grandfather was a special man. Sitting and listening to Bob the barber tell me about my grandpa meant so much to me, and only years later, though, did the many levels of meaning truly make sense. Here was Bob, tall, strong, handsome, smart, athletic, an entrepreneur, small business owner, telling me that my grandfather was special because he was caring. Here was Bob, someone I looked up to, sharing stories with about my grandfather's compassion. Here was someone close to me telling me he admired my grandfather for so many reasons, including that my grandfather truly loved the community, cherished long-term relationship. He loved with all of his heart and words in and right action. And my grandfather was a gentle man. And I learned it's okay to show that you care. It's okay to be compassionate. It's okay to be gentle. It's okay to love. We don't have to harden our hearts in healthcare and life. Softening our hearts, learning to love again, focusing on building long-term relationships actually shows strength, a strength of character. That positions all of us to connect with ourselves and with others and flourish in the funeral home business, in healthcare, and again, in life. Now, Edwards Deming, author of Out of Crisis and the founding father of total quality management, he too understood this fact. His words, the result of long-term relationships is better and better quality and lower costs. He got it, just like my grandpa. And we can get it too, and spread this message and live this message throughout healthcare each and every day. Now, throughout my journey of discovery, I'd already learned a ton of good, and also some misses. Sticking for another moment with learnings from family, our youngest daughter, Haley, was working at an assisted living facility. Like my grandpa, she loved her community. She loved her people she cared for. She cherished the often long-term relationships. And then folks in leadership positions at this organization realized the value of being nice and being kind. Perhaps they read the terrifically researched book Compassionomics. And so they made a decision. They made a decision to give staff people additional money per hour to be nice to residents of this facility. John Berwick, senior fellow at IHI, says it brilliantly. Incentive programs are not only impractical, but they do not respect the person. If you trust the motivation of the workforce, you can put your carrots and sticks back where they belong. And this is exactly how Haley felt, disrespected. And she left shortly thereafter to help another community with leadership who trusted and loved and would too position her to honor her calling and to flourish. As a former CFO myself, why would we want to waste money when the research shows rewards do not create lasting commitment? They merely and temporarily change what we do. And people are likely to become less interested in their work, requiring more and more extrinsic incentives before expending effort. As leaders, we must ask the right questions, including as basic as, is a financial incentive even necessary? While also understanding that there are additional levers to achieve optimal outcomes. For example, from Daniel Pink's work, a focus on autonomy and mastery and purpose. That said, when we honor, when we respect, when we create a culture of caring, of love, financial incentives may not be necessary at all. Now, in the same vein, and through additional research, I also learned more and more about metrics and how best to leverage. Like many, I too used to be a proponent of the theory, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. I figured if Deming and Drucker, two quality and performance experts, said it, who am I to argue? But they actually never said it, and they never believed it. Many of us simply like to create bumper stickers of sayings that align with our own thinking. In healthcare, we've been wasting resource, wasting people, chasing after data that does not help, does not turn the dial, and does not position ourselves, our teams, and our organizations to flourish. What people like Cameron have said is, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. And Deming, it is wrong to suppose that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. A costly myth. Now, add to this, Paul Zak, neuroeconomist, found through his research, when it comes to people, and think about healthcare and people, not everything that goes into being effective can be captured by some kind of metric. Not enthusiasm, not alignment with an organization's mission, not creativity, not innovation, not the willingness to go above and beyond, not the love of self and of others. We must make peace with the fact that some performance indicators simply cannot be measured. People are more than numbers, and much of healthcare organizations' success relies on human factors, which are often impossible to measure. Yes, people are more than numbers. Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging are essential to our ability to honor our calling in healthcare in our communities as humans. And yet, 62% of workers say diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging programs aren't effective. More than half, or 57% of respondents cited belonging, that they feel valued, that they matter, that they are loved. They say that needs improvement. What they say is they do not feel valued. They do not feel they matter. They do not feel loved in their organizations. And most employees say they would benefit from a DEIB program if the company was actually committed to it. But why hasn't DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, been successful for many organizations? I do have a story here. I was blessed to meet Dr. Kalawale Bankole about 15 years ago. And during this time, I remember Dr. Bankole turned me on to the poem I Too by Langston Hughes, which I'd like to read here. I too sing America. I am the DACA brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when company comes, but I laugh, eat well, and grow strong. Tomorrow, I will be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare to say to me, eat in the kitchen then. Besides, they'll see how beautiful we are and be ashamed. I, too, am American. The message of these words to this day still remind me of my good friend and how he was not accepted. And yet he overcame with love in his heart and a strength that only comes from that love. Dr. Bankole and I had met as part of a healthcare leadership program in Maine and became fast friends. And it was during this time he shared more of his story with me. He told me how some healthcare and other leaders and politicians would use him to achieve a number, a metric associated with a diversity goal. by appointing him to boards, leadership groups, councils, committees, and more, and then not truly listening to him, not caring about him as a person, not engaging him in his intellect, his wisdom, and his heart, and not allowing him to impact and to improve the community, which was his mission. Yes, he noted that he was to many just a number, but he himself knew he was far more, for he had looked into his own mirror, and he shared how he kept his heart soft and how he would use these opportunities to learn and grow and make a difference anyway. He would laugh, eat well, and grow strong because he had so much love in his heart for himself and for others. And he would do so with his head held high, his knowing he was far more than a number, and with his true north of helping others never wavering. I remember during one of our leadership sessions, he and I were part of a skit which included Dr. Bancoli holding up a wooden mask he had brought in from his native land, and him walking through the room chanting with his wonderful Nigerian dialect. You don't know me. I am more than the mask you see. I am more than what you think me to be. I am more. Dr. Bancoli inspires me to this day. These are challenging times. You don't need me to say that. And the recent highlighting of historical and current day racial injustices serves as a reminder we must be all in this together. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging must not be about achieving a metric, a number. It must be about learning to love and to honor, learning to love and honor all. Jack Ma, he's a billionaire and the founding father of Alibaba, agrees. If you want to be successful, you should have a very high emotional quotient, a way to get on with people. If you don't want to lose quickly, you should have a good intelligent quotient, IQ. But if you want to be respected, you should have LQ, the quotient of love. Yes, LQ, a person's ability to be kind and loving to self and to others. In fact, at a recent World Economic Forum, Jack Ma said, a machine does not have a heart. A machine does not have a soul. A machine does not have a belief. We are not machines. We are human beings. We have heart. We have souls. We have beliefs. We have intrinsic value. We have the opportunity to care, and we have the opportunity to love. And we are each blessed with the opportunity to ensure all who we encounter not only feel seen, but are seen, that they are heard and understood, not to achieve a metric, but because we truly care, that they are respected and honored, that they flourish, that they belong, and that they are loved. Want to be successful? Want to honor one's calling in healthcare? We must keep our hearts soft, move beyond just numbers and metrics, and learn to love again. To soften one's heart and love again, it's not easy. And oftentimes, like with our combat engineer friend, it requires help. Maybe many people call this the soft stuff, the woohoo stuff. For many, it's just the opposite. To love requires courage. It requires us to re-engage with our hearts, to look in our own mirror like Dr. Bancoli, and develop our love quotient, which at the end of the day makes perfect sense because the Latin root word of courage is core or heart. As leaders, when our hearts are soft and we truly have a high love quotient, when we are able to love ourselves and others, when we truly love our teams and create a caring culture, they too will love. Linny is a good friend of mine, and she's full of faith, of hope, of love. And I remember vividly a story she told me some 15 years ago. She shared that one weekend, actually Easter weekend, she was in the hospital with her daughter, who was battling sickle cell disease. And Lenny said that she herself was so tired, so sad, so worried. And although she was with her daughter, no place else she'd want to be, she felt so alone on Easter morning when she sat in the dark in a chair and watched over her daughter. Lenny had been in the hospital for over a week, and during this time, she said she got to know many members of her care team, and especially her custodian, Mike. And on Easter morning, as Lenny sat in the dark and wept, Mike knocked on the door to her daughter's hospital room and asked to enter. Lenny, of course, said yes, and as Mike walked toward her, she said he suddenly stopped, turned around and said he'd be back in a few minutes. A few minutes later, Mike walked back into the room toward Lenny with his arms behind his back. And then he handed Lenny a basket of flowers and a stuffed bunny. And he said, Lenny, I'm here for you. Anything you need, I am here. And then he paused before saying, and please know, you and your child are loved. 15 years later, Lenny still tells this story and how grateful she is for the doctors and the nurses and the wonderful care her daughter received. But mostly, she tells the story of her custodian, her friend, for loving and caring for her and her child, and being there when she needed someone most. When our hearts are soft, when we engage our love quotient, when we love, we position our team members to do so too. And this is when the magic happens. To this day, Lenny will not go anywhere else except her hospital. Yes, because of the technical skills of the doctors and nurses and others, but mostly, according to Lenny, because of Mike. And again, as a former CFO, we don't need to invest significant financial resources to achieve that outcome. What we need to do is love for love's sake. And these wonderful unintended consequences, customer retention in this case, will happen. Now, I remember during the height of COVID-19, as I continued to research and seek out what positions someone like this custodian to have a soft heart, so Mike, and be his true, authentic, compassionate, caring, loving self, I connected with a call center leader from a large physician practice. And this individual shared, as we navigate the new business realm, we must be patient with one another, stop and take time to think before we speak, weigh the odds of need versus want, care for ourselves and for others, and continue to answer the call to serve. When we do this, we love, care for ourselves and for others, and continue to answer the call to serve. Now, my research has taken me throughout the world and throughout time. And one key stop on this journey was in Calcutta to learn love from Mother Teresa. If we really want to love, we learn how to forgive. And this wisdom hit on multiple levels. When we say, I forgive you, the true loving message we are sharing at a heart level, at a mind level, at a soul level is, I hold on to you and let go of the pain you've caused me. When we say, please forgive me, the truly loving message we are sharing at a heart, mind, and soul level is, please hold on to me and release the pain I've caused you. In essence, we are lovingly prioritizing one another, prioritizing love and light over pain, over anger, over resentment, over revenge, over darkness. And like Mother Teresa, from the author of The Deepest Place, psychiatrist Kurt Thompson has also noted the power and impact of forgiveness. To create flexible, adaptive, coherent, energized, and stable communities, we learn to forgive. And according to Desmond Tutu, without forgiveness, without reconciliation, we have no future. With forgiveness, we open ourselves, our teams, our organizations, our communities, all up to renewal, to healing, to a new beginning, to success, and to a loving future. And just imagine that in healthcare. And this connects us back to another brilliant insight from Deming, the quality improvement guru I mentioned earlier. What Deming found in his quality-focused research was the following. 94% of problems in business, in healthcare, are systems-driven, while only 6% are people-driven. And for all of us healthcare leaders engaging today, we leaders, we own the system. We own the 94%. But how often, as leaders, do we seek to hold someone accountable? Because it's what leaders do. Over the past few years, especially, accountability has been a loud consulting buzzword. And it should. Accountability is important, but it's been misunderstood. When we lead, when we truly lead with love, we look in our own mirror first. We analyze and then we get into right action appropriately. We ensure that the system, the 94% that we own, is optimized. And if not, we share courageously, vulnerably. We apologize, we ask for forgiveness, and we fix it. And then and only then do we turn our attention to the individual, the 6%. Leading with a forgiving heart, leading with love requires far more of all of us, and especially of leadership. It does take courage. This is when we best position our organizations, our people, ourselves to honor our callings, improve our own well-being, and together achieve our collective mission. And please don't forget to learn to forgive yourself too, which may be the hardest forgiveness given of all. And I would add, and don't forget to be grateful for the opportunity. Now, Fred Rogers, or for many of us, perhaps Mr. Rogers, he's one of my favorite philosophers, full of wisdom and love. And he in turn looked to Henry Nouwen, author of The Way of the Heart, for much of his inspiration. And in this case, specific to the power of gratitude and its linkage to love. The discipline of gratitude is the explicit effort to acknowledge that all I am and have is given to me as a gift of love, a gift to be celebrated with joy, a gift to be celebrated with others. I remember one morning I was sitting near an Army veteran in the lobby of a VA hospital. And I remember him leaning over and asking me, "Guess what's in the box?" "I don't know. What's in the box?" I responded, while being caught a bit off guard. Now, this veteran and I had been conversing for about 20 minutes, and he noticed my Boston accent immediately, and I noticed his Brooklyn. We were neither in Boston nor Brooklyn. "I have an angel in the box," he said. He had told me about his branch, his service, his war. He said he loves this VA hospital. He said he loves seeing his brothers and sisters here. He said he misses his wife, who he had lost a few years prior to cancer. "Why do you have an angel in the box?" I asked. He responded, "I recently had surgery here." He then proceeded to tell me the details, how he did not want the surgery, how cold the operating room was, how they had trouble waking him in recovery. He then said, "I've seen a lot. I've done a lot. I don't like to admit it, but I was really scared. Mary," that's his wife, "was no longer here keeping me safe. And I kept having bad memories of losing my Mary." He began to weep. So I leaned in, I put my hand on his shoulder, and I simply said, "I'm sorry." And then after a little bit, after holding space together, I asked again, "Why do you have an angel in the box?" And he said, "I was so scared. I want to be with Mary. I really do. I miss her so. But I also know I have more to do here." When I awoke in recovery after my surgery, as my eyes cleared and the world came back into focus, I saw her. And then I heard her, my nurse, Nurse Michelle. "Master Sergeant Jim," she said, "this is Michelle, your nurse. You're in recovery. You did great. Your surgery is done. You did so good. Jim." "Tom," my friend said. Michelle held my hand. She leaned in. She spoke softly. She was so calming. She cared about me. She kept me safe. Just like my Mary. She loved me. Michelle was my angel, and I want her to know. We each have the opportunity to profoundly impact the life of another, absolutely through our technical skills, and also through our compassion and our caring and our love. And when we do so, you just don't know what you will receive in return. And today, at this moment, I'd like to celebrate and share my gratitude for each of you, for all of you, for all you do each day, to reinvent through radical collaboration, to work as a partner in the well-being of others, to be a catalyst for system transformation, to partner to achieve elements of the quintuple aim, to contribute to social change, to lead and to serve and to love. Your love is changing lives, is changing healthcare, and is changing communities. Now, again, we in healthcare, we have a tendency to create bumper stickers. For example, what many people believe Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world, is actually not truly what he said, nor exactly what he meant. What Gandhi really said was far more complex, far more profound, far more meaningful. And here, I would like to read the slide. We but mirror the world. All the tendencies present in the outer world are to be found in the world of our body. If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change toward him. This is the divine mystery supreme. A wonderful thing it is and the source of our happiness. We need not wait to see what others do. There are many profound aspects to what he truly said. One key is we must focus on changing our own nature. We must learn to love again. Now, throughout this journey of discovery, I discovered the importance in healthcare and in life of softening one's heart, loving in the form of listening, building long-term relationships, understanding empathy, helping people reach their full potential, intentionally creating caring cultures, heartfully using incentives and metrics. Forgiveness. How often do we ever discuss forgiveness in healthcare? Gratitude. And loving self and others and working to change one's own nature. And so much more. How love amplifies all we do. How love multiplies the impact of all we do and all we are. I've learned everyone benefits when we embrace love. Love truly is the force multiplier that amplifies the efforts of ourselves and our teams, leading to, according to the research, engagement soaring, innovation increasing, technology being leveraged as a tool to ensure loving, healing relationships rather than replacing them, collaboration growing, turnover plummeting, communication improving and understanding increasing, people being seen and heard and knowing they belong, are loved, and responding themselves with love for others. Our teams, our colleagues, the families we support, us all feeling safer. Humanity is embraced. And again, these are all the byproducts of love. When we love first and always, when we truly love for love's sake, the rest will happen. The rest should and will be an unintended, beautiful consequence. Avidas Donabidian was a physician who studied epidemiology at Harvard. And he's the founder of the study of quality in healthcare and medical outcomes research. That all said, what resonates with me is his personal philosophy, perhaps best summed up in this statement. Systems awareness and systems design are important for health professionals, but are not enough. They are enabling mechanisms only. It is the ethical dimension of individuals that is essential to a system's success. Ultimately, the secret of quality is love. You have to love your patient. You have to love your profession. You have to love. And when you do, we improve healthcare quality for all. Together we are blessed. Together we are loved. And together we can do much to bless and love others. Because at the end of the day, love truly is the force multiplier. And when we do love for the love's sake, we all flourish. Thank you all for being here today. Like I said, I've been so looking forward to being here and sharing with all of you. And Naomi, I'll turn it over to you or answer any questions that are out there.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. We do have a few questions. There were some questions that came in. So one of them, Tom, is how do you implement these values in such a large and multi-level organization?
I love that question, and I hear it often. It starts with, just as Gandhi said, we need to change ourselves first. We need to look in our own mirror and we need to learn to love unconditionally first. For the combat engineer, it requires him going to seek mental health help. For others, it's looking like Dr. Bancoli, it's looking in the mirror and understanding that what is being said and what is being done is not about him, it's about others. So again, first it starts with the mirror and looking at ourselves first. Secondly, it's role modeling. We need to live it. We can't just know it intellectually. We need to live it ourselves. And then I say this often, and a lot of people are not ready to hear it. People need to be ready. They need to have, as some will say, ears to hear and eyes to see. You can't force it on anyone. As I said, well, actually, folks may know or remember or maybe even have implemented gratitude in large health systems. And one of the tactics is thank you notes. Thank you notes are wonderful. Handwritten thank you notes, specifically thanking someone, being grateful for it. But what has happened when we forced it, when we tried to achieve spread or scale quickly, we started to set metrics on thank you notes. We have said to people, you need to send out 10 thank you notes a week. And if you don't, we're going to hold you accountable. And in some cases, we've actually attached it to financial incentives. It's not how it works. That's taken a beautiful opportunity to connect at a heart level with others through a thank you note in that particular case. We turned it into a tactic that we're holding people accountable for. So again, first, look in our own mirror. Second, role model. Third, when people are ready, then you start to work with them and you start to walk